For me, that was the green light. I'm like, okay.
Okay.
I was
And
like, let me start finding some places. I kicked you out the boat.
welcome to Be Life Changers. I am Kathy Coates, and this is our very first podcast. Woo! I am so excited. I cannot begin to express how excited I am today about recording this podcast. Is finally coming to life. Michelle, my bestie over here, been with me for many, many years. I'm so excited to have you as my very first guest. And but of course, I had to have you. You know,
I'm honored.
I had
I'm
to be
so
you.
happy.
You know, but we just came into the recording studio for the first time, and I asked. This place is just gorgeous. I was just. It took my breath away, basically. I mean, look at this logo.
Literally. Yeah.
I mean, it's absolutely gorgeous. Even though I paid a little part, and then I'll take a little credit. But really, thank you, Jared, so much with JT Visuals and Stacy with Brand and Go. They did an amazing job. You know, I had little critiques here and there, but it was gorgeous. I mean, it's just perfect. And when I came in, it just took my breath away. I literally was in tears because I was like, it's kind of like the vision. You know, you see the vision and it's like it comes to be. And, you know, but JT Visuals, if you've not checked them out, you definitely have to look it up. It's JT Visuals without the I, because as you see, everything here, they're more than meets the eye. They're more like family. It's been a great experience getting ready to do the podcast. It's my first time doing a podcast. I've been on a few, but I have never had my own. And so I was very nervous. I was like, I don't know if I can do this. But, you know, Jared and them were like assured that, hey, it's like you're born to do this. I'm like, I don't know about all that. But, you know, I always figure that as my best friend, Danielle. But, you know, as like you all see me. If you're online, you do see me with my best friend, Danielle, all the time. But this is my other best friend. You always got to have two. You know, you got to have two.
At least, yeah.
You know, your tribe. So I have a tribe of friends who are very close. So let me introduce you to Michelle Estrada. If you,
Hey, everybody.
Yeah, say hey. So
Hey,
we
hey.
have come a long ways, haven't we?
Yes.
Yes. Let's see. I mean, we have known each other for a long time.
We're not going to say how long we've known each other.
No,
We're not giving that away.
Okay, we're not going to do that.
It's been like, what, 15 years?
At least
It's been
15.
a minute.
But we don't have to express anything else. But that's fine. 15 years. And so I see. I know that we knew each other before. Just Ladies Fitness, I think.
Mm-mm.
No, was it really?
Yeah, that's
really?
where we
I
met.
thought we met each other before then. But okay, yeah, let's go. That's how long we knew each other. Like when we literally, the reason we say that though, is because when we first met, it was like we had already knew each other.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Like literally,
yeah.
so that's why
I was just thinking the same thing.
I know. I sometimes think, well, is it my brain? But no, it's like when I met you, we clicked right away.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew you were perfect for the gym. You know, you came in and we just turned that place upside down.
We sure did.
Yeah.
Powerhouse energy.
Yeah. So anyhow, that's how we met. We met in Wichita, Kansas. We worked at a local gym there. And it was just like I said, when we met each other, it was just like we knew each other forever. And so that's where everything kind of got started.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, it was an all-women's gym, and it was a tanning salon, so we were always tan, you know. It was a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun. Like, yeah, that's
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of where the events came to play. You know, we did these ladies' nights out. They were super fun. And so we'd do ladies' nights out, and we'd bring in vendors inside the club. So we'd always start with the club and ask people that had small businesses, and we'd bring them in, and they'd be able to set up their little booths, and then everybody that was a member could bring a guest that night. And it was like one big party. And so we would have all kinds of food spread out. And then people would come in, they could go shopping, they get to check out the gym. We'd have glow light Zumba. Do you remember
Oh,
that?
yeah.
The
Well,
glow light
that and
Zumba?
turbo kick,
Oh,
yep.
yeah, yeah, you had the turbo kick? Oh my
Yep,
goodness, yeah, that's
yep,
the turbo kick queen. I mean,
yeah.
the turbo quick queen. So, yeah, that's how we met, and, so that's how the events kinda started,
Mhm.
and, but Michelle, I remember you, the one thing I can remember is that I really feel like when you came to work there, that's when you broke out of your shell, wouldn't you say? I mean, there was a lot of things you were going through at that time, and I remember really encouraging you to start the teaching. At first, you were like, "I don't know." Yeah, you were doing the teaching of the classes, but remember we were starting to do, like, the trainings of, like, nutrition
Oh,
and
yeah.
things
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that, and so I really remember you just it was almost like like when you step into your purpose, which that's what
Mhm.
this is all about. You guys are going to know Be Life Changers is like bringing those real stories with real purpose and how it became a real change. And that's why I'm bringing this up right now
Mhm.
because I want to know how on your side, I'm asking you kind of how you felt on that side. But
It was
it
nerve-wracking.
was, she was like, it's nerve wracking.
But
Well,
you helped out with that, though.
but I seen it in her though. I mean, she was such an encourager and her knowledge, and I just knew you were just a coach in a
Mhm.
whole and complete sense, not just like a physical trainer. You could really teach people what you knew. And when you stepped into your purpose, it was like this light blew up in you, and you just started glowing all
You
over
stop it,
the
you're making me cry.
place. Well, it's true, though. It was just like
It was
you
magic.
became a whole different person.
It was magic, yeah.
So tell me on your side, what were you feeling then? What were the things you were going
Um,
through? Because I mean, we're talking about purpose.
right,
Yeah.
yeah. It was nerve-wracking because it was a different and what she's talking about is we met because I came to work for her, the gym that she was working at as a group fitness instructor. And so I was already used to having to lead a class, but there was a difference between leading a class of people that are exercising with you versus leading a class of people that are sitting down, all eyes on you. and so, and that's what she's talking about because we started branching out and doing because it was all about community, wanting to not just be a gym for people, but we were really wanting to make sure that we helped people on every single angle. And so I started helping people in terms of, okay, I know what your goals are. I know what the end result is that you want it to be. And it's not, there's a lot more that goes into place than just, nutrition and exercising and stuff. I'm like, let's figure out where the block is. And so that's where I started helping with her blessing, of course, teaching classes about mental blocks and how people tend to get in their own way and sabotage results and stuff. So it was just nerve wracking at first, though, because I'm
Hmm.
like, people aren't huffing and puffing with me. They're sitting
Right.
down in chairs, all eyes on me. And so it was nerve wracking at first until it wasn't.
Hmm.
It was the catalyst that got me out of that kind of a shell because it was more,
Right.
all eyes on me. I've never been too comfortable. Well, I should say up until, that moment, I was never comfortable being in the spotlight. And
Hmm.
so with your blessing and your help, because you definitely,
I'm
you
about that.
big,
Yeah.
big sister energy, what I mean? I was like, oh man. And that did it. It
Right.
catapulted me into what I'm doing now. So you
Hmm.
definitely have a part to play in that, and I thank
Oh,
you
well, I mean, I
immensely.
just seen it. It was just the energy. I could see it. I could see that gift in you. And, it's kind of like when I talk to people about when you're coming into your purpose, it's a little scary. I
Mhm.
mean, just like what you said, it can become very scary because it's out of your comfort zone for one. I mean, like
Mhm.
you said, the same thing when you're leading a group of people and they're just all following you, that's one thing. But when those eyes turn around and look you straight in the face, like, because
Yeah.
it's a little different. That whole energy is different because now you're talking, they're looking straight at you, they're seeing inside of you. You have to be vulnerable.
Mhm.
And those things, it can almost stifle you if you're not careful because that fear, and I say
Mhm.
it's false evidence appearing real because it's not real, but it feels real.
Yeah.
It sure does. I mean, you feel the
Mhm.
butterflies in your stomach.
Yeah.
But just like you said, when you step into it, it becomes like just like we were friends. Like, I've been doing this all my life. I'm meant to do this. It makes
Mhm.
sense. It feels right. And, I just remember that. And I wanted to bring that out because that's what this whole podcast is going to be about, is bringing out those real stories about how people get started, how scared they were at times, just like I was a little nervous switching gears and coming in to do a podcast. Like I said, everybody around me has been in the media industry and stuff. But, I'm one of those, I like to turn the camera on everybody else. So when the camera
Mm.
turns to you, it's like, that's something you had
Outside of
to
your
learn to
comfort
do,
zone, yeah. Mhm.
And so, I think that that's pretty cool. And so I wanted to bring that out, about when we met, that is where I really started to see you come into your purpose. And that is one thing when you see someone go into their purpose, you get so much, satisfaction. I mean, it's just so it's hard to even describe the
Heart
feeling.
happy, your
Yeah,
heart
your heart
feels
is so
happy,
happy that,
yeah.
that somebody is finally. It's just kind of like way we felt in the gym, like all those programs we put together to help people get success.
Mhm.
And it was so fun. Like I said, we really, that group and team that we had built there, all the parties we had, and the programs and the training that we give, it was more than just a gym. It was a community.
That's
It
yes.
was that community feel.
Mhm.
And so, that's exactly, I just love building a community
Mhm.
to get people results, to help them have success. And so that's how we all got started. And so that's where my passion came from. That's where I started getting excited. As much as we talk about you stepping into your purpose, I was beginning to step in my purpose as well. As much as I thought at that time it was going to be that I own a gym and, like, be healthy spirit, mind, and body all my life. It was, God had a different purpose and a different direction, but we all have seasons.
Mhm.
And as we develop those gifts, they come in seasons and stages. And, all those experiences that you have in life go to what you're really called to do. And so when you were stepping in your purpose, I was stepping in my purpose too and didn't even know it. Like,
Mhm.
just helping other people get their results. I was discovering who I was because at that time, when I had first started working at the gym, I had been at home with the kids raising them
Mhm.
for years, which everything was about my husband. Everything was about my family, my children, and that's great. I mean, it still is. Everything's still about my husband, my family, my kids. They're still, very high. Besides God, they're number two. That's why
Mhm.
I do all of this, is to encompass the time that I can spend with them. But sometimes us women, and I know you can probably relate to this too, we can get lost in that title
Mhm.
of mom.
The
We can get
role.
the role,
Mhm.
So people ask what you do. I'm a mom. What do you do? I have kids.
Yeah.
I'm married.
Yeah.
So, you kind of get lost in that. And so when I stepped back into the gym, I was discovering who I was again.
Right.
And so I think that's pretty cool that God brought us together just in time to really start to help each other begin to find out our real purpose.
It was magic.
It
I'm
was
telling
so
you, it was
magic, but
magic,
what
yeah.
but what we really didn't know was that was just the beginning.
Yeah.
Although, I mean, I remember the day that I found out my husband had got a job and we were going to be leaving Wichita and going to Atlanta. And, it kind of crushed my world because here
Mhm.
I was thinking we were on the right path. It was because it was so fun. When I say, I mean,
Oh, it
we every
was.
day was not like a job. We would come in and yeah,
Well, it was one of those environments where it didn't feel like work.
no,
I
absolutely not.
literally spent all day at the gym because
Hmm.
I went from just being a group fitness instructor to also being a trainer, and then we started doing, more of the classes. I
Hmm.
was there all day,
Oh, yeah.
and it didn't feel like I was at work. I
Mm-mm.
was around a bunch of friends. It felt like a huge party.
Yes, all the time, and
And
yeah.
yeah, and then we just built this amazing community. And then it was weird because all of a sudden, all of us just started I ended up moving up here to Kansas City.
Mhm.
And then you, like you said, your husband got reassigned to what was it, in Atlanta?
Atlanta,
Atlanta,
yeah.
yeah. And then
Mhm.
there was a couple of other girls that was on our team that
Yeah.
all at the same time, everybody just started moving. And
Mhm.
and I remember you and I just kind of like on the phone talking, you're in Atlanta, I'm in Kansas City, and we're like, "Oh, we know there's more." Like we
Right.
couldn't figure out like what is going on here because
Yeah.
we knew that we could just feel it. We could feel it in our bones and our soul
Mhm.
that there was just something more like we
Mhm.
were supposed to be doing.
Yeah, because we talked a couple times, I was there because, that was probably one of the hardest stages of my life. And I always encourage people,
Mhm.
when you get in that season, start writing things down because, and kind of figuring it out. That's how I dealt with it. I just opened a book and I spent a lot of time in prayer, of course, and things like that. But I just started writing it down like, okay, this was a pivot I wasn't expecting.
Mhm.
I wasn't so sure, what was going on. And so I just had to step back and realize, okay, I'm fine with this role. I know God brought me to it. He's going to bring me through it. But my heart was, I like you. I couldn't get over it because I knew there was more. Like I knew the relationships that we had there weren't over. So I didn't understand, why am I up here if because I say that with several people in my life at that
Mhm.
time, like my best friend Danielle and, of course, you.
Mhm.
I felt that, and I thought, well, why is it ending if I really feel like there's some kind of purpose?
Mhm.
But, it took me submitting and being like, there's stages in life you go through, and you don't always understand what that stage is, but you're going to learn something in it.
Mhm.
But I'm one of those that's very detail oriented. So if you're like that, I totally get it. Like you feel like you have to know what's going on sometimes. And so it drove me crazy when I didn't know, but I learned to like really dig deep and start, writing things down, pondering things and taking a break, which was very hard for me because everybody that
Mhm.
knows me knows I don't sit still very easy.
You know what? And that was a time of isolation for you because I mean, you were really literally almost out in the middle of nowhere. And
Yeah.
so, looking back, it's like it's easy to see
Mhm.
where that moment was taking you, but when we were in the middle of it, we were just it was a test of faith.
Yeah, it sure
It
was.
was a test of
It
faith.
was, and I loved it. I mean, there was still a
Mhm.
beautiful place. There's lots of fun things to do, but it was just strange because everywhere I go, I've never had trouble making friends. I've always been a like, pretty much extrovert, as
Mhm.
in, I meet people very easily. But God held it at first. Now, by the time I was at the end of Atlanta, I had some besties. I mean, I had my ride or dies. But, shout out to Yolanda because it is the one person that I did get to have a friend in Atlanta at first. She was my friend through the whole time. But at the end, it was like it opened up. It's like God had to wait for me to say, okay, I'm going to go anywhere. You can send me to Nineveh. You can send me to,
Right,
you know
yeah.
what I'm saying? Like, you can send me wherever,
He
and I'm
wasn't gonna
going to
let
do
you
it.
get comfortable, that's what that
Oh,
was. He wasn't gonna
no.
let you get
And
comfortable in
I
Atlanta.
always tell people be careful because I actually said out of my mouth there was two places I would never live. One of them was Atlanta, Georgia, and the other one was Wichita, Kansas. So, yeah, I know, isn't that crazy? So, yeah, it was
That's
the
the first
first
time
place
I
I
heard that.
went. I went to Wichita, yeah. So the first time I went to Wichita, I'm like, "What am I doing here?"
That is so funny.
And I love Wichita. I mean, I actually fell in love with
Yeah.
it. I didn't fall in love with Atlanta right away.
Mhm.
And so, but when I got there, I was like, okay, so from now on, I'm telling you, if you really don't want to go somewhere, do not say it out loud because the Lord will take you there. But anyway, yeah,
Hey, God's
so
got jokes, I
yeah,
tell
yeah,
you.
he do. Yeah, he does.
God's got jokes.
Yes, yes. So I remember, but I always tell that story that, when I'm there, I actually fought, and I always thought I was submitting. I thought I was okay with it, but I still had an attitude. I'm not gonna lie. I really did. My kids will even tell you I had an attitude. My husband will tell you she really had an attitude. But, when I really came to the point of like, okay, Lord, I'm going to be here. Like, what is
Mhm.
it you want me to do here? Not because at first I was planning like what I was going to do with you, what I'm going to do
Mhm.
with everybody else, this gym I'm going to buy, this gym I was going to build, like all these things that I thought I was going to do. I mean, I was doing what I wanted to do instead of submitting to what my real purpose and calling was to do.
Right.
And so when I finally submitted and said, okay, Lord, if this is where you want me, show me what you want me to do, start opening doors, hey, that's cool. And we're talking about a year and a half in,
Mm-hmm.
Close to 2 years. And I would say I started kind of settling. But, we were there for almost 3 years. My husband was there 3 years. I was there 2.5 because between the moving of us, like him moving up there and then, him moving back, there was like that half year that I wasn't there. And so I would probably say it was about 3 months. I can almost write that. I have it in the journal the day that I literally, because I started really, like, friends started popping out. I started building really close relationships with people. And of course, that's when my husband's like, guess what? We're moving back to Kansas City. And I'm just like, what? Because I know you want to be closer to your family. There's a job that opened up here. And I'm like, because you want to move back, we can, or I can stay. And that was a dilemma because I literally remember saying, let me think about it.
Mm.
I know that sounds crazy. I was like, I wanted to be out there so bad, but at the very end, I was like, well, I have all these friends now. I've
You finally submitted.
I finally submitted. Like, maybe I'm really supposed to be here. Maybe it's a test. Maybe I'm not supposed to go back. But then I thought, okay, wait, no, I'm being released. It's time to go.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's when I called you. I don't know if you remember the day I called. I'll let you tell that story.
Well, I remember that he didn't know right off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
There was like 2 places or 3 places where it could have been. And I remember you telling me that Kansas City was one of them. I'm like, oh my gosh, please let it be Kansas City. But, and then that was, I didn't hear anything from then. And I just remember you calling me one day. You called me one day and you were like, guess where I'm at? I'm like, oh, okay, where are you? And you're like, I'm in a U-Haul on my way to Kansas City. I'm like, what?
I should have pulled that picture. Yeah, I should have. I did.
Oh
I drove
my
my kids and we basically, my husband flew in a couple of times and helped us pack. And then we had a great group of guys from the church that we attended there. And shout out to Word of Faith, all you great men that helped us that day. That's a great. I miss my church. I love my home church. I love when I go back to Atlanta, got to visit. But anyway, so we had got everything packed and ready to go, and we literally left that night right after rush hour traffic. So we waited. So at 5:00, we drove to a grocery store parking lot. They have what they call a Publix. We don't have Publix here, but Publix was there. We drove there, and I saw the friend that was allowed to be my friend the whole time, my sister. Yeah, so we said bye to Yolanda, but we were waiting for the traffic to die off, and we literally took off right after traffic kind of died off. So it was probably about it was by 6:30 or so, and we drove all night. So I drove that big old U-Haul. Yes, me and my daughter was she was young at the time, so she bouncing on the other side, ready to go back. We look like peas in this thing because we're the small ones. All our boys are big, so it probably made more sense. They look like they fit in there, but me and her didn't look like we even fit in the truck. Like people probably look like they're driving what? But we drove this big old truck, and we drove all night, and the boys followed us in a car all the way back. And so I remember calling you and like, surprise, I am really coming. I was bored, so I had to call my friend.
Oh my gosh,
you're like, I'm coming.
I was, so excited and floored. But I'm like, what do you mean you're in a U-Haul on your way here?
It just happened so fast. Like literally when I say that,
awesome.
It was like that 3-month countdown. Like he didn't know exactly where he was going to go. And he said, what about Kansas City? Would you be okay? And I'm like, well, yeah, I would think so, But he goes, I can stay. Because one of them was being able to stay. And we were just like, well, we ended up coming back because, we missed our family. And we're still, far enough away. It's still a couple hours to Salina. But yeah, so there we go, coming in here. And and that's kind of just how it all started. And we got together pretty much right away. Mm-hmm. We were both in MLM companies at the time and both selling health and nutrition. I do remember that. So I was wanting to get down here and get busy and start getting some, business going because of course, again, it was moving. So, what am I going to do when I get there? All the kids were in school at that time. So I usually like to do stuff while they were in school and still have that freedom of finding a job that I could be like at all their games and stuff like that. So I was like, if I get down there and start building things right away, then, I would have a little bit more freedom. And so I remember it was your birthday.
Oh,
You
yeah.
remember?
Okay, we're getting into it now.
Me and
Okay.
Rachel Rita.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, our favorite Mexican place out here in Kansas City. If you haven't been there, it's amazing food. But we went there, and it was your birthday,
Mhm.
and we started talking about like what we could do to build a team and different things like that. And you were talking about pop-up shopping events.
Mhm.
Different ones that were going on here in Kansas City and what was kind of trending and going on. And I'll never forget, you kind of leaned over and you looked at me and you were like, but I know someone who knows how to throw a mean party. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Because what you were saying, the waiting list was pretty long at the time. Like, it was hard for you to be a vendor in some places. You were like, what'd you say?
Yeah.
It was like a couple, you were having a hard
Oh,
time getting
yeah.
in.
I just remember seeing like big pop-up events. I mean,
Mhm.
and we had already done several. And
Mhm.
I was like, "Oh man." And that's pretty much where the idea for it was born.
Mhm.
But I seen a need for it.
Mhm.
And I was like, we probably should maybe look into doing the same thing. And
Mhm.
as soon as you told me, I remember, as soon as you kind of gave me like, okay, yeah, that's maybe something we could do. And for me, that was the green light. I'm like, okay.
Okay.
I was
And
like, let me start finding some places. I kicked you out the boat.
I was getting ready to say the same thing. My mouth drops open because it's the truth. I was like, so some of those that know that you have to have all these plans and you have to
Mhm.
have someone who disrupt those plans, and that's what Michelle was like.
'Cause
So
she
I'm
would
a
have been like,
planner.
okay, I need this and this and all this needs to be done. And I'm like, I already booked the place and paid the deposit. What are you talking about? We're doing this.
So
We'll
she
figure out.
calls me. I'll
We'll
never
figure
forget.
everything out
No,
later.
I said, yeah. She goes, you really mean it? I'm like, yes. And so I remember getting a phone call, like, it was what we met on the weekend, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably.
It probably was a weekend. I think it was because your birthday. I try to remember. I think it fell on a weekend. I think it was like a Sunday. Because I remember getting a call less than 2 days later, and you're like, can you come to Belvoir Winery on Friday? And I was like, well, yeah. She goes, well, I want you to see this place. It's really cool. It's very nice. It's by you. And it was like, it'd be the perfect place to throw an event. Because we talked about wanting them to be different places. Like,
Mhm.
instead of just doing them at 4-H buildings and, outside and all that kind of stuff.
We wanted it to
We wanted
be a
upscale.
place
Like,
that was in places that were interesting. So it wasn't just shopping.
right.
We wanted it to be at places where it would be neat to explore. Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
And so it was just, yeah, that was one of the first places. And I'm like, it's just right down the street from where I was staying. And it was a nice little way to kind of dip our toes in to see how everything went. It just went off with a bang.
Oh my goodness, that first one, I'm telling you what, boy, and we were a little, I mean, we both, even though you kicked me off the boat, we were a little nervous about things like,
Mhm.
how's this going to work or whatever. But I mean, you were just like, hey, I mean, you had the name, you had did all the research. This is the research queen. Let me tell you, when I tell
I
you
was.
how I first learned social media, Michelle is the one. Like, I was the one that went and made the deals with, the different venues and different businesses.
You were the people person. Yeah, you
Yeah.
were the relationship building community and stuff. I'm like in the background. Okay, well, we'll get vendors in there and I'll handle all the invoices and all that stuff.
And she did handle it, boy. But that's where I started learning. And I said, you know what? I've got to know how to do this too. Because, of course, we know Michelle started having a family, a little bit more babies, and one after another. Like, she was started, I think it's because she hung around with me. Me having
I
8
still
kids.
haven't caught up to you.
No, you still haven't caught up with me. But, boy, you had them quick, just like I did. I was like, wow, okay, maybe I shouldn't, like, sit too close to her. I don't know. I used to tease people, if you don't want to have kids, then don't come around me. No, so.
Oh, we're good now. We're
Yeah,
good.
we're good now.
We're
Yeah,
good now.
but that's kind of how it went. We got things going, and it did. It went out with a bang. I think our first event, we were rocking over 300.
I was like 4 or 5.
Yeah, it was close.
It was
yeah,
packed.
yeah, it was packed.
It was
That place,
amazing.
yeah. So, and that's the picture you guys see. If you go on Facebook and you see that background picture, that's
Mhm.
one of the first prizes we give away. Are you ready to win some prizes? It's always fun. Always fun things. But that's what we wanted it to be because, as women, we're always giving. We're giving our time, our resources. It doesn't matter if you're a mom who's decided to stay home and raise your kids or if you're a mom who, is a CEO of a company. No matter what, we're givers. And so sometimes we don't take that me time. We did Spoil Me Silly before me time came popular.
Mm. Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it really,
Yeah.
it was like we started doing that Spoil Me Silly, and then the term me time started coming out, and everybody was like, taking care of yourselves, and so it was like right on time.
Mm.
And so, because that's what we really wanted to do, it was kind of twofold. My heart was always wanting to make sure women got to get out for several hours and do something besides going to eat or just going to go
Mhm.
shopping. We kind of mixed the things that women like, shopping, pampering, prizes, all that kind of fun
Hanging
stuff,
out,
hanging out
communing, yeah.
in a really beautiful spot, not just anywhere. Like, so if you didn't have money, you could dream. If you did, you could spend. I mean, that was
It
our
was
heart.
fun.
It
It
was
was just
so fun. They
fun.
were every one of them was fun, and it helped small businesses get off the ground because that's my heart is always to help that small business get up and going, being able to stay home and provide for their family, be with their family, to have that time freedom, that control. That if you want to be there, you can.
Options, to give people
Options,
options,
just
yeah.
giving people options, and
Mhm.
I just loved it. We just had a blast having, making sure that those businesses got out there and having options, making sure women can come out and have a lot of fun. It was a really good time.
Mhm.
It really was. I said, you know how to make it, I don't know, make it a lot of fun. It is fun. So, but then again, I said, everything has a season, and we still do things together. But at that time, you were starting to have babies, and I
Mhm.
remember that I said, Michelle, you may want to, just wait a little bit. And I think that was a hard decision for you.
It was.
How? Tell me a little bit about that. How did you come up with that?
Well, when we started, um, Kansas City women's events, I had already had like what a 1-year-old.
Yeah.
And then when we started it, we were only like 3 months into getting everything. And in fact, when we had the Belvoir Winery event, I was already pregnant again.
Mm-hmm.
And so that whole thing started. And some of the later, you could see me like I'm just about to pop out, but I wasn't getting ready to have a toddler and then a small baby. And it just got to be so overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't able to really show up for you and for the business and for the events the way that you guys that y'all deserved.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was very difficult to I remember just having to talk to you and then like, okay, I need to start teaching you and how to start handling things on your own. And then we even got to a point where I was able to automate things for you.
Mm-hmm.
But it was very difficult for me because I was going through my own thing about, okay, you know starting a family and all that stuff, and but wanting to be there
Mm-hmm.
with you and having all that fun. It was a difficult gear change for me.
Mm-hmm.
And but I yielded to it,
Right.
and so
Right.
that I believe that happened for a reason because we had already been talking like the business at that point. It was like it's about vendors and helping them and stuff, but you still had the dream of the
Mm-hmm.
be life changers. And I'm like, and I could see it. I'm
Right.
like, yeah, I could see it. I'm like, no, this isn't it. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
this is a springboard to what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And so I was seeing everything as like all of this is happening for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
I'm being made to step back so that
Mm-hmm.
everything was put on your shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
And then things got super, maybe stressful for you, but that opened up things for you. You started making more contacts and
Mm-hmm.
more, connections and
Right.
networking and stuff like that. And it led you right to where you are here now.
Right.
And so, yeah, it was difficult, but at the same time, was already trusting, like it's
Mm-hmm.
happening for a reason.
Right.
I'm a little bit more, laid back and easygoing and go with the flow than my friend here is sometimes.
Yes, say.
It wasn't easy, but
Yes. No,
yeah.
no. I know it wasn't easy. And I remember you saying, and I remember the day you said that. You're like, Kathy, this was the platform. This is your platform
Mhm.
that's built for what God showed you back in Atlanta. And, I remember all those journaling and stuff I kept, Be Life Changers was the name that I had wrote down. And for a long time, I really wasn't sure what that meant. Because when I remember was discussing when you come to me, even with doing all the research, and you were like, we're going to do, KC Women's Events, for all the reasons technically you had for us to use that. And I was like, well, okay, that makes sense. But remember, I said, but God told me something about Be Life Changers. I don't know what that means. So that must mean something down the road.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll never forget when you left, you're like, Kathy, because it's a setup for that.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, this is the platform. I kicked you out the boat.
It's the springboard. Yeah, it's the
I kicked you out the
springboard.
boat, and now you just got to keep going. You have to learn that. You need to, you got to keep doing that. And so, I submitted to that then because at that time, maybe you didn't realize, like I tell you, you get fearful when things happen. I knew the shift. It was okay. I was fine with doing it. I mean, I knew how to throw parties and all that stuff, but I was a little leery about the social media side of things.
Mm-hmm.
And, because I knew I was good at all the other stuff, but I had been prepped all that time. You had trained me so well. And then, of course, I went under other coaching at the same time. And that's when I learned, God teaches you. He equips you as you go along for all the things that you're going to need to do what you need to do. And so by the time you had let go, I had those tools. I just needed to have that extra push.
Right.
And so I would say back then, it was harder for me to jump. It's not that way now. It's easy for me to jump now. Like, I mean, it doesn't take me long. Like, when all the doors open to actually start the podcast, let's do it. Let's do it. I'll try anything now. So those things, it becomes easier the more you do, the more you put yourself out there, the more you become vulnerable. I think, it becomes easier. And so,
Yeah, you saw you can fly. You're like, okay, I can swim, I can fly, I can do. Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, doing all those stages, and then of course COVID hit, and that was kind of crazy, and that's when the rebranding happened. Because I thought, okay, well now this chapter's over. It's not really over, but moving on. And so
going to the next phase.
Go into next phase. And so that's when we went into, Kathy Coates events, Kathy Coates from Kansas City. And so, basically.
Did you like how that worked out?
Oh, yeah. It worked out great. You didn't even know it.
Well, I remember you were talking to me about it because you were, not that you needed my permission, but I think you just felt like, you wanted to give me a heads up. I'm like, that's why it ended up being KC Women's Events
we had no idea. Here we were thinking it's all about the research because KC searched more than Kansas City. But I guess I'll give you a tidbit of news if you needed to know that. But anyway, yeah. So that was the research at that time. I don't know what it would be right now, but at that moment when we were doing all the research, that's what it was. And like I said, she was the expert when it came to that. And so, but I'm so glad because it set it up for what it was really meant to be. And so that's pretty cool. And so we're here now with Be Life Changers and going to be telling stories. And with that, tell us where you're at right now. What are you doing now? I know you're like me. When we switched into that, we had lots of pivots and turns and changes, thinking, like, where are we supposed to be? And so it took a minute to kind of find where we were going. So tell me about what's going on with you right now.
I'm kind of in an in-between phase right now. I'm a caregiver for my mom who's got multiple sclerosis. And then my youngest finally just started going to kindergarten. So I'm doing the mom thing. And then I'm also taking care of my mom, but I work, in the interim. And so what we learned, the whole thing that the KC Women's Events, like the whole part of that was trying to figure out ways to make an income that would fit your lifestyle rather than trying to make your lifestyle fit, what you're doing for work. And so, now that I'm kind of in the middle of transitioning. So my heart passion is still the same as it was, 15, 20 years ago. It's wanting to help people identify exactly what it is that gets in their way, wanting to move to whatever the next phase or the next stage of their life is. And I'm starting to step more into that realm now that the other roles in my life are not that they're taken like in a back seat or anything like that, but my kids are older now. They don't demand so much of my time. But yeah, so I'm just starting to step back into that realm of building that business. So yeah.
That's awesome. That's so awesome. I know, it is different. Those stages of life when you have your kids with you, it looks a lot different than when
Mhm.
they start getting older and you start having a little bit more time than what you did before.
Yeah.
And but having that freedom, to do things that you can that what you do gives you time to be with your family, like being with your mom. Yeah.
Yeah, finding ways, very creative ways to be able to make an income so that I could stay home
Mhm.
and take care of my mom and take care of my kids.
Right.
And that is gold for me. Now it's like, okay, again, my mom is, she's still in the same way, but my kids don't require as much. So,
Mhm.
that neat, creative way, I'm starting to lean more into that and building that and just, like living the dream.
Right, right.
Because I don't have, not that 9 to 5s are bad. They're not,
No, I mean,
but
yeah,
for me personally,
yeah.
it's like I have a lot of responsibilities and I'm
Mhm.
like, I wanted to find a way so that I could be able to spend as much time with my kids as possible. I didn't want daycare to raise them. I didn't want someone else to raise my kids. I wanted to raise my kids.
Mhm.
And so, I basically taken my own advice.
Yeah,
Taking my
wow.
own advice. How might I be getting in my own way and
Right.
dealing with that, and then just, kicking myself out the boat like I've done so many times before.
Mhm.
And yeah, so that's just my heart's passion. I'm just following that. What lights me up? And that's what I teach other people, like follow your heart's passion. If you want to work 9 to 5, and to me, that was one of the things. Like, I
Mhm.
don't have a problem working, 12-hour, 10-hour
Right.
days or whatever if it's my passion,
Right.
and so that's for me, helping people find that in themselves, whatever lights your soul up. I don't care
Mhm.
what it is, you
Mhm.
know?
Yeah, because then once you find that passion, that purpose that you have in your life, it's not like work anymore. So even if it
Mm-mm.
is like a job, like if you are a CEO of a company or you're working that 9 to 5, if you're doing what you're really called to do it within that lane, it doesn't feel like a job. Like
Exactly.
you don't come home like angry, throwing things. Like I mean, there's seasons and everything, but you
Right.
might not. And there's not always
Human,
a
human.
human, but yeah. But I'm just saying it doesn't feel like a job.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I mean, there'll be times, I'm working and I'll look at the clock and it's like 2 o'clock in the morning. And to me, and I don't even know because I'm so
Mhm.
into what I'm
Mhm.
doing, that's like, that's it.
Yeah, it's it. I
That's
know, and
it.
that freedom to do that,
Yes.
to find out where you work best, because I know a lot of times they'll say, well, if you don't get up at 4 a.m. or 5 a.m., I'm like, I am not gonna be up with no 5 a.m. on no chicken.
What works for you,
And
right?
exactly. Are
Yeah.
you a
What
night
works for
owl
you?
or are you,
Yeah.
are you that rooster? I mean,
Right.
and that's fine because I mean, I think that works great for everybody. I mean, I think as long as you're getting, the work done. I mean, we don't want to be
Hmm.
lazy sitting there doing nothing, but I mean, I'm one that like, I'll be up till 3 a.m. and back up it with the chicken sometimes. But I mean, like people like, do you sleep, Kathy? But I don't know. I think a lot of that is being around, Gabriel. That same thing, with your mom. That's what like my center core of my purpose is my son. I have a son who's deaf and autistic.
Hmm.
He'll be 30 this year, and
He's a big guy. He's
he's
tall.
he's
He's
my
big.
bodyguard. Like
He's a big.
literally, I've talked about putting him in a suit with like some people think I'm like I should go around. I was gonna make a whole page about it, like have him in a suit with like glasses with a little. Making
Aw.
him look like, because he has this look, like he has this, like when he looks so serious all the time. I think people are looking like, okay. I'm like,
If
yeah,
you didn't know, yeah,
you
looking
didn't
at
know, like,
it,
is she like, what is going on? Like, yeah, he's my
if
bodyguard.
yeah, if you
Yeah,
didn't
he's my,
know,
yeah,
he can
he's,
look kind of intimidating. If you didn't know,
yeah, if you
right?
didn't know.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's
He's a
funny.
big guy. What is he,
Yeah,
like, 6 foot?
he is almost 6'3".
Oh,
Yeah, like
man.
almost 6'3".
That's
Yeah.
big for me. I'm only 5'2",
Yeah, well,
so
me too. Got the little
I'm
5'5"
only
going
five
on,
two,
but yeah.
so
But he is so sweet. But he runs around, and and so my day gets to be around him. So there is a lot of times that I work late at night finding what works for you, and I work with other businesses in that to get that freedom, because I think a lot of times we feel like it has to be a certain way. Just like when I was
mhm.
homeschooling, I felt like the kids had to be up at 8 and we had to work till 3. I had to get over that. Like when
Mhm.
did the kids work best?
Right.
And when we submitted to that, and for the season that we did homeschool, because it was a very short season, but the season we did, when we submitted to where they work best, they learned so much. much. And I learned from that. Your kids can teach you things, guys.
Mhm.
But, I
Absolutely.
learned from that, work when it makes sense. Like when you're most alive. Like I'm not gonna sit there and work when I feel like I'm about to go to sleep. You're not gonna get anything accomplished. So, finding that pattern that works for you, and sometimes it is, late at night. And so, mine goes around, sometimes he doesn't sleep good with autism. Sometimes they don't sleep real good at night. And so, I'll get up and I'll just start working until, he gets settled down, and then I'll go back to sleep. But that's okay because I can sleep in just a little bit. So I've learned to sleep here and there and everywhere. But that's the freedom of, building what I do around my purpose. And,
Exactly.
and that's one of them. So, yeah.
Well, when you find your purpose and you start to live in it, it's just I don't there's no it's I can't even explain what that's like, and to be able to help other people do that,
Hmm.
which is you're so gifted at.
Thank you.
Well, I think is you're just naturally, you're naturally drawn to pull that out of people anyway, and that's one of the coolest things is to watch people be lit up from the inside.
Hmm.
So I think finally getting Be Life Changers off the ground is just like,
Oh my
especially in
goodness.
this,
I
like
know.
where we're at now, like
Right.
as a society, I think
Right.
it's we're here for a reason. You're here for a reason.
And we talk about timing. Timing's perfect. All those things that we went through got us to here. And like you said, it's the season for it. It's,
Hmm.
you know, um, our community, bringing our community together to see our small businesses. I want, Kansas City to know what they have local, like who do they have to shop with, and knowing those stories. Those stories are so powerful. I mean, like some of my favorite places that I go to eat, I love their story. That's the reason I go back over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And so, that's what I want in Be Life Changers. I want the community to be able to see, why you want to shop local, that there's real people behind these businesses that
Right. It's not just a brand.
it's not, yeah, it's
There's
not
a
just a
life
brand.
story
Like,
behind
yeah,
it.
there's a
Yeah.
life story. And how did they get there? And it might even spark something to a lot of people that even thought about doing something on their own. And then hopefully they'll step out the boat too, or maybe I'll be the one kicking you out the boat this time. Like, 'cause since I got kicked, I can kick the other people out. It's my mission now. But yeah,
Initiation. Yep.
initiation.
Hmm.
But yeah, kick out the boat time. So, but yeah, but that's what my heart's desire is for people to really, know that they're loved, know that
Mm.
they belong, and know that we all have a purpose because each and every one of us are on this earth for a reason,
Mhm.
and we're here to be together. So that collaboration, even between businesses, is so important, especially right now. The things that we're going through. I'm not a politics person. You're not going to hear me get into too much of that. It's not me.
Well, I think you're
But
getting into like the competition. It's the
yeah,
competition part.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the competition and, all of that, teaching people that collaborating, we need each other because, like,
Hmm.
without our fingers, we can't pick up things, we have to have eyes to see. Everybody has a purpose. And when we come together, I don't believe in saturation. I think everybody still can blend and work
Right,
and
because
lift each
it's
other up at the same time.
exactly, and
Yeah.
that's what we forgot to talk about because we were in
Hmm.
MLMs, and the MLMs that we were in were competitors,
Oh, my goodness.
and we were already of that mindset where we're like, it's not about
Oh, yeah, no,
it's not really, yes, it was about the products and stuff, but it wasn't, you know what I mean?
no.
And so we knew from the get-go that it's not about competition, and it is about collaboration.
Collaboration.
And if anybody is focused on competition, then it's like, yeah, okay, what do we need to do to kind of
Mhm.
help switch your focus so that you're
Yeah,
not
that
seeing it that
mindset.
way?
Yeah, that
Yeah.
mindset because, we would set booths right next to each other. We weren't
Mhm.
scared. I mean, like there was times I literally would send some of my clients to you because I knew
Same.
you could serve them better. And I
Mhm.
wanted them to get results because we both were in health and nutrition.
Mhm.
So I knew that they would fuse with Michelle better. Or there was one product I really liked of her, so I'd put it with the regimen of
Same.
mine.
Yeah.
And so that made sense to be able
Right.
to share like that. Yeah,
Collaboration.
and then
Yeah.
people respect you and they're going to come back to you because they know that you're, that loyalty's there.
Mhm.
that integrity is there. And, so I think that's important. And, I love that, we've been able to do that together. So
It was all a springboard.
yeah, all a springboard.
all a
I know, that's
springboard.
right. So I'm excited for this being our very first episode. I mean, I couldn't have anybody else but Michelle with me because she is the one that kicked me out the boat, and I probably wouldn't be doing any of this, but still
It was
planning.
so fun. It was so fun kicking you out of the boat. It was so fun.
She kicked me just to kick me. But anyway. But yeah, no, I mean, I wouldn't have. I'd have still been planning. I get that from my father. But, I still be planning all the details of.
Like, no, we're doing it.
We're going to do it. No. And now, it's not so much the same anymore. And I'm glad. Thank you. Thank you for kicking me out the boat.
Girl, you're welcome.
Oh.
I'd do it all over again.
Yes, I know you would. I know you would. And I'm looking forward to the things we'll be doing together here soon. I still am, I host networking events. We do some fun things like content and cocktails.
That looks fun.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to have to come and see
Oh,
one of
yeah,
those here.
yeah. I learned the social media side because I had to. But anyway, so if I am, and I'm going to say it, I turned 52 in May. Yep, that's it. I turned 52. So if I
You're
can do
rocking
it
it, girl.
in my 50s, anybody can do it. So like I said, that's the purpose I have to teach people that it don't matter what season of life you're in, you can learn it and you can do things and post until you can hire people to do it. And
there you go.
Hey, that's what it's all
never
about.
too late.
Nope, never too late.
Never. Yeah, and all the limitation that we might be operating under is always just up in your head.
Yep. So that's what we wanted to bring out in this episode is, finding that purpose,
Yes.
Jump out the boat, guys.
Jump out the boat.
Yeah, jump out the boat. That's what we're going to say.
I'll come kick you.
Jump out the boat.
And just nothing to it but to do it.
Yes. And, like JT Visuals, I mean, they're helping me jump out the boat too. So I appreciate it. So make sure that you take this episode, share it with your friends, hit the follow button, follow us, share it, like us. And I'll be back soon with the next episode.
Yay.
But shout out again to JT Visuals. This is so gorgeous. I just
fancy.
feel
Fancy.
I know. It is fancy. I feel fancy. I feel fancy. But anyway, yeah, so thanks a lot. I appreciate it. I appreciate you believing in me and putting me on your network. And so, guys, share so that they'll keep me on their network. No. Anyway, yeah.
It's going to blow up in a good way. It's going to blow up.
It will.
It's gonna blow up.
Till the next episode, we will see you soon.